Humanity has been around for about 200,000 years and has experienced a massive amount of change already. From our starting point in Africa, we've managed to colonize the entire world at this point and even reached as far away as the moon. The Bering Land Bridge that once connected Asia and North America with one another has long since been submerged beneath the ocean. So if humanity exists for another billion years, then what additional changes or events can we reasonably expect to happen? Starting out just next year in 2018, two new countries may emerge in the form of New Caledonia and Bougainville in the Pacific, as they hold independence referendums from France and Papua New Guinea respectively. The FIFA World Cup will be held in Russia, and NASA will deploy the James Webb Space Telescope, which will be significantly more powerful than the Hubble Space Telescope. In 2019, the United Kingdom will officially leave the European Union, and the FIFA Women's World Cup will be held in France. The next year in 2020 will probably be quite eventful. The Jeddah Tower in Saudi Arabia is scheduled to be completed, which will become the new tallest structure in the world at a full kilometer tall. The Summer Olympics will be held in Tokyo, and Bigelow Aerospace plans on beginning construction of the first ever space hotel that will be able to accommodate 6 very wealthy guests at a time. In 2021, India is expected to launch their first ever manned space mission. And the following year in 2022, China plans on constructing their first very own space station. In addition, the FIFA World Cup will be hosted once again in Qatar, and the Winter Olympics will be hosted in Beijing, China. In 2023, the copyrights on the earliest Mickey Mouse cartoons will expire under current US copyright law, but 2024 will be much more eventful. The company SpaceX ostensibly has plans on launching their first rocket carrying cargo to Mars this year in preparation of a future manned mission. At the same time, the International Space Station will probably run out of funding in this year and be decommissioned as a result, although this may be delayed until 2028. Finally this year, the Fehmarn Belt Fixed Link will be completed, which will provide a direct rail and highway link between northern Germany and Copenhagen in Denmark. In 2025, the Giant Magellan Telescope is scheduled to be completed. It will be the largest observatory in the world at this point and have 10 times the resolution power of the Hubble Space Telescope. In addition, the UK will have completely phased out all of their coal power plants. The next year in 2026 will possibly see SpaceX launch the first ever manned mission to Mars if everything goes according to their current schedule. NASA also has plans to send a manned mission to visit an asteroid this year, and construction on the Catalan Cathedral Sagrada Familia will also be finally completed. Construction on this epic church began all the way back in 1882, which means that it will have taken 144 years to finally complete it this year. In 2027, 10 years from the current year if you are watching this in 2017, the SpaceX crew that launched the year previously will finally arrive at their destination, meaning that we might witness the first ever humans to set foot on Mars this year. Also, the full autopsy report on Elvis Presley, which was agreed to be sealed for 50 years following his death, will finally be made publicly available this year. In 2028, the Summer Olympics will be hosted in Los Angeles, California. At near the end of the decade in 2029, the cities of San Francisco and Los Angeles will be connected by a high-speed rail line that can transport people from one to the other in just 2 hours and 20 minutes. But when the 2030s finally arrive, we'll all be in for a very interesting decade. At some point this decade, NASA plans on launching their own manned mission to Mars, so if SpaceX failed to accomplish this in 2027, then NASA will probably land the first humans on the Red Planet sometime around now. China further has plans on launching their own manned mission to the moon sometime during this decade as well, and Russia has plans on landing their own cosmonauts on the moon in the year 2031. Skipping ahead to 2036, however, and we arrive at perhaps the most ambitious upcoming space project called Breakthrough Starshot. Without going into too much details, the plan should be able to send tiny spacecraft to the Alpha Centauri star system, the nearest other star to Earth. A planet inside the system, Proxima Centauri b, is located inside of the habitable zone here and could possibly be home to some form of alien life. When the tiny ships are hopefully launched in 2036, they will arrive in the system 20 to 30 years later and can take detailed photographs of this mysterious planet. In 2037, we may see the first summer where there won't be any ice in the Arctic, and by 2040, France will have completely banned the sale of all gasoline and diesel vehicles in the country. In 2042, the world population will have probably reached 9 billion people, while Americans of European ancestry will become a minority group inside of the United States for the first time. This year will also probably see the advent of the world's first trillionaire as well. And in 2044, the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, including The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, will enter into the public domain. 2045 is the estimated year of the technological singularity according to the famed futurist Ray Kurzweil, meaning that this may be the year where artificial intelligence will surpass human intelligence, which could lead to enormous and unforeseen changes in society. In 2048, the Antarctic Treaty will come up for review, which could lead to mining and oil industries opening up on the continent for the first time. And finally, we will arrive at the year of 2050. By this point, half of the Amazon rainforest will likely be deforested. About 70% of the world population will be living in cities. About half of the global population may not have access to clean drinking water. The average global life expectancy may be 76 years old. There will be super smart artificial intelligences that will be even smarter than humans. Self-driving cars will likely be normal, and a new world of possibly hundreds or even thousands of people will be living and working on Mars. Looking at about 10,000 years into the future, we will encounter the year 10,000 problem. Software that encodes the AD calendar year as a 4-digit decimal will no longer be able to encode dates starting at 10,000 AD. It will be a real Y10K, and in addition, if current trends of globalization continues, then human genetic variation will no longer be regionalized by this point, meaning that all human genetic traits like skin color and hair color will be evenly distributed across the world. In 20,000 years from now, future languages will only contain 1 out of every 100 core vocabulary words of their present-day counterparts. Essentially, no modern language will be recognizable by this point. In 50,000 years, Earth will enter into another glacial period regardless of current global warming effects. Niagara Falls will have completely eroded away into Lake Erie and cease to exist, and due to glacial rebound and erosion, the many lakes of the Canadian Shield will also cease to exist. Also, 1 full day on Earth will have increased by 1 full second, requiring a leap second to be added to every day. In 100,000 years from now, the stars and constellations visible from Earth will be completely different than they are from today. Also, this is the estimated amount of time that it would take to fully terraform Mars into a habitable planet similar to the Earth. In 250,000 years, the Loihi volcano will rise above the surface and form a new island in the Hawaiian island chain. In 500,000 years from now, Earth will have likely been struck by an asteroid measuring 1 kilometer in diameter unless humanity artificially prevents it. Additionally, the Badlands National Park in South Dakota will have completely eroded away by this point. In 950,000 years, the meteor crater in Arizona, which is considered the best preserved meteorite impact crater on Earth, will have completely eroded away. In 1 million years, Earth will have likely experienced a supervolcanic eruption large enough to erupt 3,200 cubic kilometers of ash, an event similar to the Toba supereruption 70,000 years ago that almost made humanity extinct. In addition, the star Betelgeuse will have exploded into a supernova by this point, and the explosion will be easily visible from Earth even during the daytime. In 2 million years, the Grand Canyon will have eroded even more significantly, slightly deepening, but it will mostly widen out into a large valley. If humanity has colonized different planets in the solar system and the universe by this point, and the populations on each planet have remained separate from one another, then humanity will have likely evolved into various different species at this point. These different human species will be adapted to their different planets and may not be aware of the other human species located in the rest of the universe. In 10 million years, a large part of East Africa will split off from the rest of the continent. A new ocean basin will form between the two sides, and Africa will be divided into two separate land masses. In 50 million years, Phobos, a moon of Mars, will collide with the planet, causing massive destruction there. Back on Earth, the remaining part of Africa will collide with Eurasia and close off the Mediterranean Sea forever. A new mountain range similar in size to the Himalayas will form between the now connected land masses, and may possibly produce a mountain that is higher than Mount Everest. In 60 million years, the Canadian Rockies will have completely eroded into a flat plain. In 80 million years from now, all of the Hawaiian Islands will have sunk back beneath the ocean, and in 100 million years the Earth will have likely been struck by an asteroid similar to the event that wiped out the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, assuming of course that it isn't artificially prevented. In addition, at this point in the future, the rings around the planet Saturn will no longer exist. In 240 million years, Earth will have finally completed one full orbit around the galactic center from its current position. In 250 million years, all of the continents on Earth will have fused together to form a supercontinent similar to Pangaea. A possible name for this continent is Pangaea Ultima, and it will probably look something sort of like this image. Then, in 400 to 500 million years, the supercontinent will break apart once again. In 500 to 600 million years, a deadly gamma-ray burst will likely occur within 6,500 light-years of Earth. If conditions are right, or wrong if you prefer, the burst could strike Earth and severely damage the ozone layer, which would cause a mass extinction event. In 600 million years, the moon will have moved far enough away from Earth that total solar eclipses will no longer be possible after this date. In addition, the sun's increasing luminosity will cause severe effects on Earth. Plate tectonic movements will stop at this point, and carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere will decrease dramatically. C3 photosynthesis will no longer be possible at this point, and 99% of current plant life on Earth will die. In 800 million years, carbon dioxide levels will have continued to fall to the point where C4 photosynthesis will no longer be possible. Free oxygen and ozone disappear from the atmosphere, and all complex life on Earth will die. Finally, in 1 billion years, the sun's luminosity will have increased 10% from its current state. The surface temperature on Earth will rise to a sweltering 47 degrees Celsius on average. The atmosphere will turn into a moist greenhouse, and the world's oceans will evaporate away. Pockets of liquid water may still exist at the Earth's poles, however, which means that they will probably become the last bastion of life on our planet. In 1.5 billion years, the sun's luminosity will have caused its habitable zone to move outwards further into the solar system. The surface temperature of Mars during these times will resemble the Earth during the last ice age, and would make a good home for any future advanced civilizations. In 2.3 billion years from now, the outer liquid core of Earth will freeze, which means that Earth will lose its magnetic field forever. By 2.8 billion years, Earth's average surface temperature will have dramatically increased to 149 degrees Celsius, which means that even simple single-celled organisms on the planet will have completely died out. For the first time in billions of years, Earth will be devoid of any life. In 3.3 billion years, there is a 1% chance that Mercury's orbit will become unstable, which will cause it to collide with Venus, obliterating both planets and throwing the inner solar system into chaos. In 3.5 billion years, the sun's luminosity will have increased by 40% of its present value. Earth's surface temperature will have skyrocketed to roughly 1,330 degrees Celsius, which is hot enough to melt rocks. Earth at this point in time will very closely resemble Venus during our own time, and in 4 billion years from now, our entire galaxy will change dramatically. The Andromeda Galaxy, which is even bigger than our own galaxy, is currently on a 4 billion year long collision course with us. When they finally collide, our two galaxies will begin the process of merging together to form one united galaxy, and the night sky on any planet located inside of them will look far more dramatic than anything we see in our own night sky of the present. In 5 billion years, the Sun will have exhausted its supply of hydrogen and will begin to evolve into its red giant phase. Much later, in 7.59 billion years from now, the Sun will have expanded dramatically to 256 times its current size, and the Moon may fall apart and rain down onto the Earth's molten surface. By 7.9 billion years from now, Mercury, Venus, and most likely Earth will be totally swallowed by the Sun and cease to exist. During these times, however, it is hypothesized that a moon of Saturn named Titan could achieve surface temperatures warm enough to support life, which means that as the Sun grows larger, civilization on Earth could flee deeper into the solar system to escape the heat. But after 8 billion years, the Sun will have finally become a white dwarf star equal to 54% of its current mass. Temperatures inside of the solar system will plummet afterwards, and all still existing life will likely die. The number of years in the future will now begin to dramatically increase, and will start by going 100 billion years into the future. By this point, the expansion of the universe will have pushed everything outside of our small local group of galaxies far enough away that nobody here will be able to observe them anymore. Any intelligent beings that may exist here at this point will believe that they are at the center of the universe in a small bastion of light, surrounded by infinite darkness in every direction. We know this to not be true, but in the future, nobody will have any way of proving this to be incorrect, which will likely have a profound impact on future philosophy and culture. In 450 billion years, the 47 different galaxies of the local group will have further coalesced together into a single gigantic galaxy, and that feeling of loneliness will be even further amplified. All the way until 4 trillion years from now, the closest star to Earth named Proxima Centauri b will have survived. But afterwards, this ancient star will finally die just as the Sun did trillions of years before it. Finally, 12 trillion years from now, the last star that exists today alongside you watching this video will have died out. The universe will be full of new stars born after our present age. But even these will not last forever. 120 trillion years from now is when the final stars in the universe will die out. The only objects that will still exist in space by this point will be white dwarfs, neutron stars, brown dwarfs, and black holes. Occasional collisions between brown dwarfs could continue to create new red dwarf stars in this era, but they will be extremely rare. Because of these collisions, there may exist around 100 red dwarf stars in the entire Milky Way galaxy at this point. A galaxy which today is home to over 100 billion different stars. But even these final stars will eventually die, and the universe will turn dark forever afterwards. 120 trillion years, though, is a longer time than any of us can really comprehend. So on the bright side, humanity has plenty of time to enjoy the majesty of our universe before the lights finally turn off.